You'd expect the world's most famous cat and mouse duo to be timeless family fun, a universal language of slapstick and mayhem that has delighted audiences for over 80 years. But the shocking reality is some of their most infamous work remains locked away, deemed too offensive for modern eyes. For decades, millions of fans grew up watching the iconic chase, completely unaware certain episodes were being quietly scrubbed from history. The unrivaled kings of cartoon chaos. In the golden age of animation, two names stood above all others: William Hanna and Joseph Barbera. From their creative furnace at MGM, they forged a global phenomenon that needed no translation. Tom and Jerry, with its explosive slapstick and minimal dialogue, was pure visual comedy, a formula so perfect it became an international sensation.
And pretty soon, we were sitting there in a room. He ended up in a room with me as storymen, with no stories to do. So one time I said, why don't we do a cartoon of our own while we're sitting here, you know? So we set the pattern for the way it was going to work out.
Between 1940 and 1958, they produced 114 theatrical shorts, each a masterclass in timing and chaotic energy, cementing the duo's place as animation royalty. The premise was deceptively simple: a house cat's relentless yet always doomed pursuit of a clever mouse. It began in 1940 with Puss Gets the Boot, where Tom was still called Jasper, and quickly evolved into the iconic rivalry we know today. This universal appeal, however, served as the perfect cover. The nonverbal comedy allowed the cartoons to feel timeless, but they were very much a product of their time, created in a deeply segregated America where racial caricatures were a common and accepted part of the entertainment landscape. While audiences around the world focused on the slapstick, they were subconsciously absorbing stereotypes embedded in the animation, tropes that were hiding in plain sight. The very element that made the show a global success was the same one that allowed its most problematic aspects to go unchallenged for generations. The character you saw but never really saw. Long before any single episode was banned, the first shadow fell over the series in the form of Mammy Two Shoes. To millions of viewers, she was an unmistakable presence, a heavyset African-American woman seen only from the waist down, whose booming voice would threaten Tom with being thrown out if he misbehaved. She was the ultimate authority in the house, the unseen force of discipline. But she wasn't an original character, she was a stereotype. Mammy Two Shoes was a direct import of the Mammy archetype, a deeply racist caricature born in the post-Civil War era to romanticize the institution of slavery. This stock character, always portrayed as a loyal, desexualized, and happily subservient domestic worker, was a fixture in American media designed to reinforce the Jim Crow social order. The character was deliberately dehumanized. Her face was kept hidden to ensure she remained a plot device, a prop for gags, rather than a fully realized person. One of the show's animators, Jack Zander, later admitted the thinking behind the design. Quote, "Showing just her feet and lower body kept us from worrying about her face and making her another character to give personality to," he stated. By the late 40s, civil rights groups had seen enough. The NAACP launched a formal protest campaign against the character, prompted by a particularly offensive scene in a 1949 reissue of The Lonesome Mouse, where a terrified Mammy shakes so hard that a razor and dice fall from under her dress. Under pressure, MGM quietly retired the character after 1952, but her ghost would haunt the series for decades, leading to a bizarre series of edits that tracked America's clumsy attempts to confront its past. In the 60s, TV broadcasts used rotoscoping to reanimate her as a stocky white woman with an Irish accent. In the 90s, Turner Broadcasting restored the original animation but redubbed her voice with a less stereotypical one. The scene that stopped the presses. The episode at the heart of the firestorm is titled Mouse Cleaning, a 1948 short that, for its first 6 minutes, is a classic Tom and Jerry romp. The premise is simple. Mammy Two Shoes has just cleaned the house and warns Tom that if he makes a mess, he's, quote, going OWT out. Naturally, Jerry makes it his mission to cause as much chaos as possible, leading Tom on a frantic chase through the pristine home. The gags escalate from the muddy paw prints to ink-splattered walls, all building towards a spectacular finale. In a desperate attempt to catch Jerry, Tom ends up shoveling an entire truckload of coal into the living room, burying himself in the process just as Mammy returns home. The tension's palpable. The audience expects Tom to get his final punishment, but what happens instead is the single moment that sealed the episode's fate. Tom emerges from the coal pile, his entire body covered in thick black soot. He's now a walking, talking blackface caricature. The gag doesn't stop there. To avoid being thrown out, Tom stands on two legs, flashes a wide grin, and speaks to Mammy in a slow, exaggerated drawl. It was a direct and unmistakable parody of the controversial black comedian Stepin Fetchit, whose stage persona as the laziest man in the world had become one of America's most damaging racial stereotypes. The scene wasn't just a visual gag, it was an active performance of a racist trope. This wasn't an isolated incident. A similar gag appeared in 1951's Casanova Cat, where Tom uses cigar smoke to put Jerry in blackface and forces him to dance on a hot plate as a minstrel-style performance for a love interest. One fan on Reddit perfectly captured the sense of shock after seeing it for the first time. Quote, "I've never seen this episode in my life on television nor DVD. I can clearly see why, for obvious reasons," the user wrote. The gag's internal logic was deeply insidious. In the power dynamic of the household, Tom uses the performance of blackness as a disposable costume to manipulate a black authority figure and escape consequences. The Collector's War. Fast forward to the early 2010s, Warner Bros. Announced the Tom and Jerry Golden Collection, a Blu-ray and DVD series aimed squarely at one demographic, the adult collector. The promise was a completist's dream. Every classic short, presented chronologically, and most importantly, fully uncut and restored. This was meant to be the definitive archival version of the series. But when the tracklist for Volume 2 was released, fans noticed two glaring omissions: mouse cleaning and Casanova Cat. The reaction was immediate and furious. This was the dawn of a new kind of consumer power. Fans who saw themselves as archivists and historians felt betrayed. They flooded the pre-order pages on Amazon with one-star reviews and launched social media campaigns like the Unleash the Banned Tom and Jerry Cartoons Facebook page. Their argument was rooted in a deep sense of frustration with what they saw as corporate condescension. They weren't children who needed protection, they were adults who understood historical context and wanted the art preserved in its original, unaltered form. The core of their anger was captured in a widely circulated comment from a fan. "These releases are almost exclusively for the adult collector, so why treat us like infants?" one commenter demanded. Warner Bros. Found itself in a PR bind. A spokesman offered a vague statement explaining the company felt the content would be, quote, "inappropriate for the intended audience." But this only fanned the flames. In the age of social media, the studio's decision was likely less about moral conviction and more about brand safety. The potential for a decontextualized clip of a racist cartoon to go viral and spark a PR nightmare far outweighed the profits from a niche collector's set. The fans, however, saw it as an act of cultural vandalism. The battle lines were drawn. On one side, a corporation protecting its brand, the other, fans demanding their history, warts and all. Now it's time to hear from you. When it comes to problematic art from the past, is it better to preserve it with a warning, or should some things be left in the vault? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below.